When people hear the word imperialism, they usually think about a fancy British guy planting flags on maps. Lenin said that's only part of the story. According to him, imperialism is a stage of capitalism. It's what capitalism naturally grows into after it gets big enough. Capitalism starts with lots of businesses competing. Little bakery, little steel mill, little shoe company. Everybody is trying to outsell everybody else, but competition is weird. Capitalists say they love it, but nobody competing actually wants any. You ever hear the owner of McDonald's say, "I sure hope somebody builds another burger place right across the street"? No, that man's praying the Burger King catches a mild flood. Every business secretly wants to be the only business. Some businesses win, some lose. The winners grow bigger, buy out their rivals, and keep expanding. Pretty soon there's one corporation making 87 different things, and you don't even know it because every brand has a different logo. Lenin said this process eventually creates monopolies, giant corporations so powerful that they dominate entire industries. And then come the banks. At first, banks mostly lend money. Eventually, according to Lenin, banks and giant corporations become so closely connected that they're almost impossible to separate. The banks start taking over pieces of companies. Companies start depending on banks. Investment firms own stock in everybody. Everybody owns everybody. You look at the ownership chart, and it starts looking like your family tree after 3 generations in a town with one stoplight. A small group of financiers ends up controlling enormous amounts of wealth and industry. Lenin called these ruling class shenanigans finance capital. Earlier capitalism mainly exported goods. You made shoes in England and sold them overseas. You built locomotives in Germany and shipped them somewhere else. But Lenin said imperialism is different. Now companies don't just send products overseas, they send their money. They build factories abroad. They buy mines. They purchase plantations. They invest wherever profits are highest. Why? Well, it is not because they suddenly became fascinated with geography. Nobody in the board meeting says, "You know what, fellas? I've always admired the cultural traditions of Southeast Asia." They do it because in poorer countries wages are lower. Land is cheaper, raw materials cost less, and there are often fewer barriers to making large profits. If you can make the exact same t-shirt for a fraction of the cost somewhere else, the accountants start drooling so hard somebody has to bring in towels. So instead of just selling products abroad, they move the factories overseas. According to Lenin, exporting capital becomes more important than exporting products. Then all these giant corporations start dividing up markets. One dominates this industry. Another dominates that one. Another controls shipping. Another controls banking. It's like watching 5 dudes split up a deer they stole from your uncle's shed. "I'll take the legs. I'll take the ribs. I'll take the heart." Everybody leaves happy except the deer and your uncle. At the same time, the enormous profits made overseas allow corporations to pay a small layer of workers back home higher wages and better benefits. Lenin called this group the labor aristocracy. He believed this made some workers less interested in changing the system because they were receiving a share of its benefits. By Lenin's time, there wasn't much empty territory left. The major powers had already claimed or controlled most of the globe, so if Britain wanted more, France already had it. When Germany wanted more, Russia was standing there saying, "Easy there, Lord of the Ring binders." Now the biggest powers weren't fighting over empty land. So the only way for one empire to expand was by taking territory, markets, or influence away from another empire. Lenin believed this made major wars almost unavoidable under imperialism. Lenin also argued that many wealthy people no longer actually ran businesses. They owned stocks, bonds, investment funds, government loans. Their money made money while other people did the work. The factories were managed by hired professionals. The owners simply collected profits. You know those people who say, "My money works harder than I do." That's exactly who Lenin was talking about. He recognized that a growing part of the capitalist class lived mainly from ownership rather than from directly organizing production. Most people assume capitalism always pushes new inventions. Lenin said not necessarily. If a new invention threatens the profits of a monopoly, that monopoly may simply buy it, delay it, or bury it. After all, if you've already got the world's best-selling buggy whip, you might not be thrilled about hearing somebody invented the automobile. The big exception, Lenin argued, was military technology. Governments and corporations were usually very interested in inventions that could make wars more effective. Even today, budgets somehow become remarkably flexible whenever someone invents a faster missile or a more expensive fighter jet. Capitalism starts as a neighborhood poker game. Imperialism is when one guy owns the cards, the table, the casino, the parking lot, and somehow he's charging you $8 for bottled water. Why did Lenin think all this mattered? Lenin believed imperialism showed that capitalism had reached its limits. A handful of giant monopolies dominated the economy. Finance controlled industry. Corporations searched the world for higher profits. The major powers competed over markets and resources, and rivalry between those powers increasingly led to wars. For Lenin, imperialism was the highest stage of capitalism itself, the point where the system became increasingly dominated by monopolies, finance capital, international investment, and competition between the world's most powerful capitalist states. Consider subscribing if you liked the video.